What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast, my name is Kyle Dabro.
What's going on, everybody? Kevin Valentin here, the other 50% of the podcast. Kyle, what we got going on right now, brother?
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this upcoming Western Conference Finals matchup between the Dallas Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. Just to kind of give you guys a quick summary of how we got to this point. The Golden State Warriors defeated the Memphis Grizzlies in the second round of the playoffs. They defeated them in 6 games, and then to kick it over to the Dallas Mavericks, they defeated the number 1 seeded Phoenix Suns in 7 games. In that game 7 specifically, they just essentially destroyed the Suns on the road, winning by over 30 points in that matchup, which was kind of the surprise to everybody who was watching that game. But let's focus on this Western Conference Finals matchup. We got the Golden State Warriors, who have been one of the best teams consistently for the last 6 or 7 years, winning multiple NBA titles. They find themselves in a situation where they are one series away from going back to the NBA Finals. And then when you look at the Dallas Mavericks are a relatively young team led by Luka Doncic, who has just been absolutely on fire throughout not only just this season in particular, but this playoff stretch that he's been on. He's been on another level, and the Mavericks are possibly one series away from making a trip to the NBA Finals. Now, Kevin, to kick this one to you, with the Western Conference Finals matchup set between the Warriors and the Mavericks, who do you have winning the series and why?
So normally I'm not the most optimistic. I try to be unbiased. I try to be objective. I am going to choose Dallas, but not for the reason of them just being my team. I am going to say for the sake of one, that game 7 result could catapult this team into the utmost confidence they've ever seen. That game 7 victory over the number 1 seeded team can give this team a massive boost in order to go into this series with Golden State to say, if we can do that to them, who's to say we can't do that to the Warriors? And by them, of course, I'm referencing the Suns. Luka Doncic has been the best player in the postseason throughout this entire playoffs, and the numbers completely support that. Outside of Jimmy Butler and Jason Tatum, who have also been having great postseasons, Luka has averaged, I'm almost positive, over 25 points every single game. I don't think he's had a game lower than 20 points. And if he did, correct me if I'm wrong, but again, I've watched every single postseason game, and he's been absolutely killing it. Spencer Dinwiddie absolutely built confidence in games 6 and 7 for him to start hopefully getting into that offensive groove, get him into that rhythm that he was having when we acquired him from Washington. Of course, Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, and a number of other players have also increased their offensive output from the last series as well. So again, I'm hoping that this can be transitioned into this next series. I'm going to call Mavs in 7. I'm going to say that Luka Doncic is basically going to have to average a triple-double for them to go and get over the juggernaut that is the Warriors, because we all know that deathly lineup that consists of Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green can be annoying for anybody and everybody. Now, Dallas can also go small when Dorian plays the 5, but again, for us to maximize efficiency and for us to beat Golden State at a consistent rate, I personally believe we're going to have to see a lot of what we saw in the last series, which is going to be attack the basket, get their bigs in foul trouble, get Draymond off the floor so that they have to specifically rely on individual wing players to go and guard Luka. I know that they're going to pretty much throw everybody under the sun at Luka to try to disrupt his offensive output, but I know that if Mikal Bridges couldn't do it, if like Devin Booker and a litany of other Phoenix players like Cam Johnson and so many others that tried couldn't do it, I don't necessarily know if Draymond in that supporting cast is going to as well. So I will give us the edge. We just need our role players to step up. I will give Golden State kudos to say that, they overcame the juggernaut that was Memphis. Granted, they were missing Ja Morant, but they were able to rally back based off of that Game 6 Klay performance. And I will say that, of course, this series is going to be really, really tough for us. I'm not saying it's going to be as physically grueling as the Suns one, but I will say that this will, to me, be a game of shooters. Dallas is obviously one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the NBA in terms of the most shots put up. We all know that Golden State lives and dies by the 3 as well. So don't be surprised if there are some blowouts, because obviously when you live and die with a jump shot, that means that on cold nights, that means you're not doing anything, which was a prime example in Game 5 for Dallas. But again, I will go out there and on a limb and again say that my team will go and advance to the 2022 NBA Finals, but it will be a grueling 7-game series.
I think your analysis is based on all heart and not your head. Because listen, the Mavs have had a great run this year. I mean, the fact that they even made it to the Western Conference Finals is an accomplishment by itself. Because I don't think
Agreed.
either you or I saw the Mavericks making it to this point this season. Maybe down the road a couple years, that'd be one thing. But this year, I just didn't see it happening. So good on them. But I'm gonna be I'm gonna take the opposite team in this one. I'm going with the Golden State, and I got the Golden State Warriors winning in 6 games, and here's why. I think when I look at Golden State, I just think they have too much firepower to work with. Steph Curry has been too consistent for me to say anything otherwise. Looking back at that Memphis Grizzlies series, he was putting up multiple 30-point performances when the Warriors needed that to happen. And not only that, throughout most of the series, we saw Klay Thompson step up and be essentially what Klay Thompson has always been for the Golden State Warriors. Be able to knock down big 3-point shots when they need it, especially in that game 6. He was phenomenal. He led the team with 30 points in that closeout game against the Grizzlies. And then not only that, we got to focus on Jordan Poole. Kevin and I have spoken at length about how crucial Golden State's success is based on what Jordan Poole brings to the table. And despite the fact that he did have a pretty rough stretch for the last 2 games in that Grizzly series, he still was a big piece for them to get them to this point in the Western Conference Finals matchup that they're now currently in. And when I look at Golden State, you factor those 3 players that I mentioned and some of the role players like Jonathan Kuminga, Kevon Looney. These are guys that we typically don't bring up in our analysis, but let's face it. I mean, Kevon Looney was just an absolute monster down low for the Warriors in that Grizzly series because there was one game in particular, Kevin averaged 20 rebounds. I mean, Kevon Looney is a solid role player, but when you're able to get over 15 rebounds to the point where you're getting 20 rebounds in specific instances, that bodes extremely well for Golden State. And the reason why I say that is because, let's face it, Dallas is not a team that dominates the interior paint. They struggle to get rebounds because, let's face it, they don't really have a center that's really viable to play 30, 35 minutes consistently while, eating rebounds and scoring on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that the Warriors are going to take that to task in this upcoming series. Now, when it comes to Dallas specifically, Dallas, I think, is a little bit too dependent on Luka. We have seen other players like Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson come through with flying colors in specific games for the Mavs throughout this playoff run. But a lot of times it is either Luka or die because sometimes the production from Jalen Brunson or Spencer Dinwiddie is not up to the point where Dallas needs it to be. And I think the one thing that Golden State is going to make the adjustment to is that they're going to try to slow down Luka as much as possible and force Dallas to use Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie to beat them. Because let's face it, Spencer Dinwiddie has not been consistent throughout this entire playoff stretch, except for maybe the last 2 games against Phoenix. And then when you look at Jalen Brunson, I will say that Jalen Brunson probably saved the Mavs playoff run earlier in the first round of the playoffs when he dropped that 40-point performance against Utah in game 2 in round 1. And he has been consistent as far as putting, 20, 25 points for the Mavericks. But I will say that they would rather have Jalen Brunson score 30, 35 points than Luka going out there and scoring 40. That's just kind of how I see Golden State playing this series out. And I don't think that the role players that the Mavericks have at their disposal, we could look at guys like Dorian Finney-Smith. We could look to Maxi Kleber. We could look at Davis Bertans. Granted, these guys have been able to knock down shots at times, but to me, it's not to the point where it's consistent enough to where I think it's going to be able to overcome what Golden State has at their disposal. I just see this series playing out in the Warriors' favor. I have this series going in 6 games in favor of Golden State. I see Golden State going back to the finals once again. It'd be their first time back in the finals since, I believe, 2019. That was the year that they lost to the Raptors in 6 games. But I just think that Golden State has too much firepower to work with. And I don't think that Dallas is going to be able to match that. So I got Golden State going back to the finals, and that's just how I see it.